Social hierarchies exist in every culture, and they often result in discrimination, social exclusion, and the continuation of a cycle of extreme poverty and human degradation. Over 260 million people across the globe find themselves thrust into an unequal hierarchical social order. It ascribes to them a permanent status of devalued personhood and requires of them the performance of stigmatized and exploitative forms of labor. From the Dalits and the Burakumin in Asia to the Haratines in Mauritania and Sahel region, Somali Bantu in Somalia, Osu in Nigeria of Africa, to Roma Gypsies across Europe, and the DWD diaspora across Northern America. Nearly every continent contains countless lives that have seen their basic human rights violated or denied since time immemorial on the basis of nothing else but their birth, determined by the kind of labor forced on them.
Discrimination based on work and descent is a distinct socio-cultural phenomena affecting over 300 million people across Asia, Africa, Latin America and Europe, and also North America. It specifically looks at prohibitions of certain fundamental human rights, enjoyment of these human rights by people. So it leashes great amount of human rights violations on these people. And whenever they challenge these restrictions or prohibitions, there is an unleashing of violence that affects in gruesome murder, in displacement, in mass destruction, in destruction of property.
Intersection between different kind of discrimination make pressure on this woman situation, specifically in patriarchal system, where we have the patriarchy and discrimination from caste, discrimination from different work, and discrimination from slavery. I think it is why we need perhaps to look deeply on this issue and to see how to get together and bring some way to fight this situation.
Each of these communities faces stark similarities in the form and shape of discrimination they have to suffer. Forced to marry only within their own group, coerced into undertaking stigmatized forms of labor and traditional forms of slavery, pushed into segregated living and subjected to rhetoric that labels them polluted, these communities find their avenues for social mobility denied, neglected, or greatly reduced.
In Somalia, there is a discrimination, undeniable discrimination that exists for quite some time. However, the situation, it is not alleviating, but it is deteriorating day after day. Imagine people, especially the marginalized group of Somali people, in one way they have a challenge from Al-Shabaab, the other way they have a challenge from the dominant clan. So they are very much suffering, and while have less aware about that.
So Roma are the biggest minority in Europe, but also in the whole world. In Europe we are about 12 million. In the whole world we are about 20 million people, which makes quite a large share of the population. But it happens that Roma actually are the group which face the risk of the poverty. Only in Europe it's 80% of the Roma population are actually facing the risk to fall in very deep poverty. Roma are being segregated in schools. They are receiving special education, which is much lower quality education, so they cannot enjoy the mainstream high quality education very often just because of the Romani origin. It's very hard to access jobs. There's a huge discrimination in employment. Sometimes it's because of having this low quality education, but very often it's because of the skin color or the surname or just an address that Roma are living in.
This form of oppression has been termed by the UN under the title DWD, discrimination based on work and descent. Although this term acknowledges the hereditary character of the problem as well as the existence of stigmatized labor, the phrase does not account for the oppressive rhetoric that labels these communities polluted or unclean. The draft UN Principles and Guidelines for Effective Elimination of Discrimination based on work and descent is yet to be endorsed by the Human Rights Council. These principles include a variety of rights and entitlements that are designed to protect these communities from forced labor and systematic discrimination. In 2017, the OHCHR introduced a guidance tool for the elimination of DWD for all member states to adopt. This tool advocates further human rights protection and the inclusive development and participation of these communities in legislative decision-making. To further the concerns of these communities, the Asia Dalit Rights Forum, ADRF, in association with the Inclusivity Project and Trust Africa, has identified DWD communities around the world with whom strategic partnerships could be established across the globe. In September 2019, representatives of DWD communities from 21 countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America and North America met in New York and established the world's first network of DWD communities, Global Forum on DWD, GFOD.
It's the first time that people from Asia and from Africa gathered together to talk about this discrimination, how to elaborate strategies to fight this discrimination. It's the first time. Asian movement, anti-discrimination movement, have been in the field working for many years. That was not the case for the movement in Africa. So the conference allows us to learn from our Asian counterparts and also to strategize on the next step for the fight in the African continent. So basically I think that it has been a learning process for Africans about the fight against this kind of discrimination, and that the future steps will give us capacity, will give us the tools that we need to sensitize people in Africa, especially in discriminated communities, but also to engage with the government, to engage with the parliament, to engage with the African Commission, African Union, in order to put the issue in the agenda, both at national level but at the African Union level.
The GFOD aims to eliminate the practice of DWD, addressing issues of casteism, traditional forms of slavery and anti-Gypsism through strengthening national, regional and UN mechanisms.
The approach is on several levels. First of all, the concerned groups need to get sensitized so that they can get organized and free themselves so that they become the prime actors of this fight. We can't free people if the latter are not present. And the moment is a very fine example of how the concerned groups has mobilized itself for its own liberation. The second aspect is that you have to intervene by taking legal action so that people get sanctioned when they practice discriminatory attitudes, and so that people can base themselves on the legal structure to demand the rights. The third aspect is that you need to act on people's way of thinking. Because as for the ideological condition, even if the material situation changes, people still live with the ideology. They'll forbid their children to marry someone from a different caste. They'll refuse to take on certain jobs. So we need to act by carrying out advocacy work in schools.
This is the first time that communities who are bound together by the collective experience of stigmatization, exclusion, discrimination, come together and unite their forces. I'm very happy to be here for all these different communities, the Quilombo, the Roma, the Dalits and other people who are experiencing some major discrimination and human rights violations because of their identity and because of who they are. This is a major achievement. I believe that the future is forging our strength, making a stronger unity among ourselves and building a critical mass so we can respond to the challenges that are coming towards us. Often is individuals, often as community members, but as now we realize also globally because of the patterns of discrimination that we all share and unfortunately experience.
This phenomena, the socio-cultural phenomena, except in 1 or 2 countries, has not been identified. In Africa, it is slavery, traditional forms of slavery. In India, it is the caste system which affects several communities. In Europe, it is the people like Roma, Sinti, Gypsy, Manush. So we are saying that these communities need to be identified and brought under a common law which prohibits anymore these fundamental human rights violations against them. It has to give equal access to justice. It has to give gender rights and a framework which protects the rights of the children and also specifically rights of people who are involved in conflict and disasters. And this is a whole network of human rights mechanisms needs to be taken up so that they will enjoy a common and equal life for all. We would like the UN to come out with a declaration that this is another form of crime against communities, and this needs to be stopped, and legislations have to be taken up in all countries so that people can have an equal and equitable life wherever they live.
Although the path to the future is long and poses great challenges, GFOD commits to strengthen the networks of DWD communities across national and regional levels and towards a UN declaration on DWD that protects and promotes the rights of these communities and ensures development justice.